Hi, Typhoid Mary. I'm Katie, and today I want to talk to you about what the chain of infection is and how we could stop the spread of things by stopping one of the links in this chain. Now, the way to imagine it is that's a circle, never ending unless you were to break a piece of it. So we're going to start off with the first step that's called a pathogen. That's step one. It's either a virus, bacterium, or parasite that causes diseases in humans. The second step is the reservoir. This is a place where pathogens are able to live, thrive, multiply, and reproduce. So they become more dangerous. There's a lot more of them. Then there's kind of a little baby step that's kind of part of it and kind of not, and it's called the place of exit. This is the way that the pathogen leaves a host or a reservoir. Then we have the third, and it's the method of transmission. For a disease to spread, it has to spread from one host to another host or from the reservoir to the host. So this is like however it's able to do that. Then we have another kind of in between that's called the place of entry. And this is how the pathogen enters a new host, which is the opposite of how it exits the old host or the reservoir. Then we have the fourth step that is a susceptible host. This is any potential host that is susceptible to this pathogen, whether it's due to lack of immunity to it or anything like that. But this pathogen has to find a susceptible host to allow it to keep spreading. If it can't find a host that can't take it, then it won't spread anymore. And then we go right back to the pathogen, going to a host to another host, and on and on and on. Now, for us to stop the spread of any kind of pathogen, we need to break this link. Anywhere in the chain, it doesn't matter. Ideally, we want to stop it before it even happens, but it's not a perfect world. But if we could, for every single pathogen, stop it, the first step would be breaking the first link of the pathogen. We want to kill it from the start. Today, we have antibiotics, which we don't have an antibiotic for every single thing, but we have them for things that we do know, and we can stop the pathogen and kill it in this host before it can even spread to another person. Which obviously, if you can kill them all off, then it can't spread anymore. That's a really good thing. Next, we have the reservoir, and we can eliminate the reservoir that houses the pathogen, so it can't multiply and it can't stay anywhere and thrive. An example of this is like a water and sewage treatment, where it needs to be continually monitored and checked if the water and sewage has been contaminated. If it has, it needs to be treated. So if we find these pathogens in any of these sewage or water things, we could stop it right there potentially. So then people who drink the water won't get sick with it, with this pathogen that's living in the water. That's why we check and treat our water before we consume it. That little spot that's kind of in between steps, the place of exit, the way we can stop a pathogen from exiting our bodies is wearing gloves and masks and any other barriers that will stop it from leaving us. So if you sneeze, you could possibly give someone the flu because the germs come flying out. Or if you cough or you spit, or sometimes even your hands, and if you touch stuff and then someone comes in behind you and touches the same thing and then touches one of the places of entry, they can then get this pathogen. So wearing a mask will keep the nose and mouth stuff from coming out. Wearing gloves will keep you from doing the touching spreading. In a perfect world, when people are sick, they wouldn't go out and about where they can get others sick. But it's not a perfect world, so right now we wear masks to try to avoid the spread of different pathogens when you're sick, such as the flu or COVID-19, which is a pandemic that we have today. Next, we have the method of transmission, which is kind of similar, and I kind of hinted on it before, where we can stop the method of transmission by quarantining people who are infected with whatever pathogen. So I've had the flu, and when I had the flu, I had to quarantine for 10 days, which is a way for me to not go out and expose other people to this pathogen, because even when it exited me, there was no one around to be around it and grab it as well. So telling people to quarantine is a really good way to break this method of transmission. This COVID-19 that I told you about, we're also doing that, quarantining when you're in that phase where you can transmit it. We are doing studies on all different illnesses, pathogens and stuff, and when you are contagious. And after that contagious state, you are allowed to go out and about. You may still not be feeling good, But when you are contagious, you really should stay away from other people, avoid going out in public, and it's a really good way to keep it from going, because then it dies in you. No one else can get it from you, and that's a wonderful thing. Then we have the place of entry, similar to the place of exit, and we need to make these sites inaccessible to avoid transmission. A good example is mosquito-borne diseases, and these diseases can enter you through the skin when a mosquito comes and bites you. So a good way to avoid allowing these pathogens into our skin is by wearing long sleeves, wearing things that cover our body, because then a mosquito can't have access to our skin to give this pathogen to us, which is a good way. And also similar to the flu and COVID-19, we wear masks, so we can't inhale, we can't have anything enter us that's a pathogen, which is another good thing. They're very similar, the place of exit and entry, the way to break the chain. And then finally, we have susceptible host. The way to stop this, to break the chain there, is typically by increasing immunization, usually through a vaccine. And so vaccines help build the immunity in our bodies, and if enough of the population is vaccinated, it's difficult for a pathogen to find a susceptible host, so then it just can't thrive. It's no longer around. We've gotten rid of many things because of vaccines. I believe polio and smallpox aren't really a thing anymore because our population got vaccinated, and so it doesn't run rampant in America anymore. So vaccines are a wonderful way to build our immunity and keep these pathogens from entering our bodies. But the good news is that this chain does not have to go on forever. It really sucks, and we are in the time where we have wonderful medicine and science and everything, and so we can actually create antibiotics and vaccines to keep these pathogens from thriving. We can treat them when they're in their reservoir, and we have devices to keep us safe, such as masks and gloves, from pathogens entering or exiting us. I just wanted to let you know about this. It's a really good thing to know about, because it's definitely hard to understand how you could get people sick when you didn't even realize you had it. But just not knowing and being a super spreader is really hard, and these are ways that we can avoid this in the future. And we're currently working on it for this pandemic for COVID-19 right now, developing vaccines, wearing masks, and we're doing everything right now in our power to avoid this from escalating more and more and more. I hope that was helpful. So think about the chain of infection and let's break it.
So to answer the first question on the assignment, how typhoid spreads by using the chain of infection as a model, sharing food and drinks with somebody that has the typhoid infection is how it can spread from person to person. So limiting that is the best way to stop the spread. The next question is where Mary Mallon falls on the chain of infection, and she falls under the infectious agent in the chain of infection diagram. So she's the one that actually had it, and that's where it all starts from. How Mary Mallon is a link in the chain that can be broken down, and she basically has it, and the way that it can be broken down is by quarantining herself and just spending time away from everybody to stop the spread. And then the last question is how being a healthy carrier can still contribute to the spread of disease. And the thing is that healthy carriers don't really know that they have the infection in them, so they're basically asymptomatic to that. So that's the tough thing about it. But if they can find a way that they do have the infection/disease, then the best way again is to quarantine and do that.